The quiet rancher saw his alien maid limping. What the rancher did next stunned the alien sheriff. The wind rolled across the open plains, carrying with it the scent of dust, hay, and something faintly metallic, the smell of coming rain. Boone Callahan leaned against the fence of his cattle range, silent as usual, his weathered face unreadable beneath his wide-brimmed hat. He wasn't much for words. Never had been. Since the wars between humans and the Valari, those tall, blue-skinned aliens from the neighboring star systems, Boone had lived alone, tending to his ranch out in the Terran Frontier. He kept to himself, far from the cities where peace treaties were discussed and mistrust simmered. The only other living soul on his property was his maid, Lira. She was Valari, quiet, graceful, with silvery eyes that caught the sunlight like a mirror. She did the chores no one else would take for pay. Most folks still didn't trust aliens, but Boone didn't care what folks thought. She worked hard. That was all that mattered to him. That evening, Boone noticed something different. Lira was limping as she carried a bucket from the well. Her usual fluid stride was replaced by a trembling step. Boone frowned and set down his coffee mug. "You're hurt," he said gruffly. Lira stiffened, her long ears twitching slightly. "It's nothing, sir. Just a stumble." Boone's eyes narrowed. He had seen the way her ankle turned slightly inward, the faint shimmer of bruising beneath her pale skin. "Sit," he ordered softly. "I can finish the chores." "I said sit." His voice carried no anger, just a quiet authority that didn't allow argument. She hesitated, then obeyed, sitting on the porch rail as Boone went inside. When he returned, he carried a small tin box, an old military field kit. He knelt before her and examined her leg. The injury was fresh, a gash hidden beneath her uniform's torn hem. "Looks deep," Boone muttered, dabbing it with antiseptic. She winced, drawing back slightly. "You shouldn't touch me," she whispered. "If the sheriff sees you." "Sheriff can go to hell," Boone said simply, wrapping the bandage tight. "Ain't gonna let someone work hurt on my land." Lira stared at him, confusion in her alien eyes. No human had ever spoken to her like that, with care instead of suspicion. For the next few days, Boone insisted she rest. He took on the extra work himself, feeding the livestock, repairing fences, even cleaning the toolshed. Lira protested, but the rancher ignored her. At night, as thunderheads gathered on the horizon, they sat together on the porch. She told him stories of her home, of twin suns that never set, of crystal fields that sang when the wind blew. Boone listened in silence, something soft flickering behind his eyes. Then one morning the sheriff came. Sheriff Kalek was another Valari, tall, armored, and always carrying his badge like a weapon. He rode in on a hovercraft, boots hitting the dirt with a hiss of compressed air. "Boone Callahan," Kalek said, his tone cold. "You've been reported for harboring an injured Valari without proper medical documentation." Boone's jaw tightened. "She's my employee. I patched her up, that's all." "That's illegal under joint law," Kalek said. "Cross-species medical treatment without certification is a breach of Article 9. Lira stepped forward. "Sheriff, please, it was my fault. I hid the injury." Kalek's glowing eyes snapped to her. "Silence, Maid. You forget your station." Boone's hand moved to his belt, fingers brushing the grip of his old sidearm. The sheriff noticed. "You'd raise a weapon against an officer of the unified frontier?" Kalek sneered. Boone didn't answer. His silence said more than words. "Take her in," Kalek ordered his deputies. Two of them advanced, but Boone stepped in front of Lira, the dust swirling around his boots. You'll do no such thing, he said, voice low. She's hurt. She's done nothing wrong. Kalek's tone hardened. You interfere, Callahan, and you'll be charged with obstruction. Boone's eyes met the alien's, calm, steady, immovable. Then charge me. The tension snapped like a taut wire. Before things could spiral, Lira pushed between them, her voice trembling. Stop, please. Sheriff, you don't understand. Boone saved my life. When I fell near the wire fence, I was bleeding out. He stopped it. Without him, I'd be dead. Kalek's expression faltered. He touched your blood. Yes, she said, stepping closer. And yet he's still standing. So maybe your laws are wrong. The deputies froze, unsure how to proceed. Valari blood was rumored to be toxic to humans, a myth left over from wartime propaganda. Seeing Boone alive and well shattered that illusion. Kalek looked from Boone to Lira, the authority in his voice wavering. You're playing a dangerous game, Maid. Boone crossed his arms. No game, just decency. You forgot what that looks like. For a long moment no one spoke. Then Kalek finally turned, signaling his men to stand down. The council will hear of this, he said bitterly. But perhaps not today. He mounted his hovercraft and left without another word, leaving only silence and swirling dust behind. That evening, as the sun sank low, Lira stood by the corral, watching the horizon blaze in shades of orange and violet. Boone came beside her, his rough hands tucked into his coat pockets. You didn't have to do that, she murmured. Wasn't right what he did, Boone said. You got a right to work in peace. She turned to him, her silver eyes reflecting the setting sun. You risked everything. Boone shrugged. Ain't the first time. The wind whispered through the tall grass. Somewhere a distant thunder rumbled again, but this time it sounded almost like applause. Lira smiled softly. You're not what I expected from a human. Boone tipped his hat. Guess neither of us is what the world expects. As night fell over the quiet ranch, two souls, one human, one alien, stood side by side beneath a sky full of unfamiliar stars. And somewhere in the dark, the sheriff looked back from afar, wondering for the first time in his life whether the old ways still made sense. That night, after the sheriff's hovercraft vanished into the distant hills, the ranch fell silent again. Only the soft creak of the windmill and the hum of night insects filled the air. Boone sat on the porch, sharpening his old knife, staring into the dark. Lira stepped out quietly, her limp now almost gone. She carried 2 mugs of tea, steam curling up like ghosts between them. You didn't have to protect me, she said softly, handing him one. Boone didn't look up. Didn't seem right lettin' someone get hauled off for bleedin'. She smiled faintly, her silver eyes glinting in the firelight. You risked your freedom for me. He met her gaze at last. You remind me of someone, he murmured. A medic. Back in the war. She was Valari too. Saved my life when no human would touch me. Lira's breath caught. You never said. Didn't seem worth sayin' till now. He took a slow sip of tea. Guess I owed her a debt. Maybe you helped me pay it. They sat in silence for a while, watching the stars shimmer across the endless sky. The peace between their worlds was still fragile, but here, on this quiet patch of land, it finally meant something. Lira glanced toward the horizon. What happens now? Boone set his mug down, eyes on the cattle pens. Now. We work. We live. And if that sheriff ever rides back in, he'll find this ranch still standing. She smiled, the kind of smile that reached her eyes. Then I'll make sure it shines.